Okay, so this is going to be a full lecture video over the distance and midpoint formulas along with circles. So we're going to talk about how do we write equations of circles, how do we graph how do we graph circles, how do we go from the general form to standard form, and that type of things involving circles. So this is going to involve all those different topics there. So let's go ahead and just jump straight into it here. So sometimes whenever we're working with the circle formula, we run into an instance where we're going to either have to find the distance between 2 points or we're going to have to find the midpoint of it. So, which is why in this video we're going to start with the distance formula and the midpoint formula. So the distance formula is exactly like it sounds. If we want to know the straight distance between any given 2 points that we have in our coordinate system, right? Let's pretend this is just two random dots here. If we want to know that straight distance, we need to know the 2 points. And we're going to take the 2 points, plug them directly into the formula, and calculate. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first point, I typically just label x1, y1. The second point is going to be our x2, y2. Plug and chug into the formula here. So the distance is equal to the square root of, inside parentheses, x2, which we have a 3, minus is part of the formula. X1 is a -1, and do keep in mind that this subtraction here is squared. Plus, we have another set of parentheses that's going to be squared here. This time y2, which we have a -2, minus is part of the formula. Y1, which is a 4. So when we simplify this, always subtract first. Follow your order of operations. So drop down your parentheses. We're not going to focus on squaring them yet, just subtract. 3 minus a -1. Double negative rule there makes that 3 plus 1, which is a 4. Your other subtraction, -2 minus a 4. So -2 minus another 4 makes that a -6. Next, in your next step here, you're going to want to go ahead and square these here. 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16. -6 squared, -6 times -6 is a 36. Don't forget to drop down the plus sign in between them. If we add those two numbers together, 16 plus 36 is a 52. So at this point here, we are simplifying the radical. So if you're allowed a scientific calculator, go ahead and throw that into your calculator. It should simplify it for you. Simplifying radicals by hand, though, I'm old school. I like simplifying them by hand. If you're going to simplify this by hand, you need to break it down into a multiplication. 52 is 4 times 13. The square root of 4 is a 2. Square root of 13 cannot be simplified. So the distance between these 2 points is 2 square roots of 13. Or you can go ahead and throw that in the calculator to get the actual decimal representation of that, which is going to be about a 7.2 there. Now let's jump right into the midpoint formula. So midpoint, so let's say, looking at the same drawing right over here, we have 2 points, but let's say we need to know the middle, right? The direct center of these 2 points. If we wanted to chop this in half, what would be that midway point right there? That's exactly what the midpoint formula is going to do. So this formula is set up to give you a point, right? So you have your x value here, then your y value. In order to figure out your x value, you're going to add your two x's, x1 plus x2 over 2, then y1 plus y2 over 2. So label your points, x1, y1, x2, y2, and plug in. x1 is a 1, plus x2 is a -8, and we'll divide that by 2. y1 is a -6, plus y2, which is a -4, and we'll divide that by 2. Well, 1 plus a -8 is a -7, so we do get a -7/2 there. -6 plus -4 is a -10, and if we take -10 divided by 2, that is a -5. So we have a -7/2, a -5, or in decimals, -3.5 and a -5 as the midpoint between those 2 points. So the next thing we're going to talk about here is how do we write the standard form of a circle? And then once we have that, let's go ahead and graph that circle there. So the equation for standard form of a circle is sitting right over here. We have our x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So let's focus on the first part of this question. Let's write the standard form of a circle. Now, if we're going to write the standard form of a circle, two things that we need to plug in. We need to plug in the center, which does represent HK. All right, HK here is the center. R represents the radius. So if we take a look at our problem here, we were given the center and we're given our radius. So this center here of a negative 2, 3, that's going to be our HK, where our radius is going to be a 4. So let's plug into this formula here. So this formula here opens up parentheses and says x minus the h. Well, our h here is a negative 2, so we're going to plug that in. So we have x minus h squared plus y minus k, now rk is a 3, squared is equal to r, they also gave us r, remember r is our radius, so it's going to be a 4 squared. Simplify this and we're going to have our standard form of a circle. So x minus a negative 2, that is actually x plus 2 squared, plus y minus 3 squared, just drop that down, there's nothing to simplify, is going to equal to 4 squared. 4 times 4 is a 16. So that is the formula for this equation of a circle here. Let's go ahead and graph this. Now, graphing this, we're given that our center was a negative 2, 3. So let's go ahead and plot that point. So starting from our origin, negative 2, and then a positive 3. It's going to be right over there. It says our radius is a 4. Go 4 out in all directions. So I kind of think north, south, east, west. Go 4 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go 4 down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go 4 left. 1, 2, 3. Let's just say 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Connect the dots. And you have your circle. Not the prettiest circle, but it is a circle. Continuing on here, our next problem says that we have a line segment that intersects a circle and cuts through the points, or these 2 points here. Write the equation of the circle with the given endpoints and graph. So essentially what this is saying here, so just to give you a quick drawing here, is we have our circle, and it's saying that a line cuts through this circle with these points here being a negative 2, negative 3, and 4, 7. Now, these aren't going to be drawn perfectly. Again, this is a quick little sketch of what we're looking at here. All right, so we just know that a line cuts through it, and where it cuts through, those 2 points are represented by these points, these 2 points that we have here. And it wants us to use that information in order to write the equation of a circle. So let me rewrite that for us here. So again, remember that the equation of a circle in standard form is this here, where we need to plug in h and k, and then we also need to plug in the radius, right? So we need to know the center, and we need to know the radius in order to be able to do this here. Now, we don't have either one of those informations. We have no idea what the center of the circle is. We have no idea what the radius is, because again, we would need to know the center and then the distance out to represent that radius here. So we need to figure out, how do we get this information here? So first off, let's start with finding that center point. We want to find this point here. And the way that we're going to find what that point is we're actually going to use the midpoint formula. We know what these two here are. And if we know what these two are, we can take the midpoint formula that's going to take this distance, chop it in half. It's going to make us find that midpoint, that center distance there, which is going to be, well, the center of our circle. All right. So let's go ahead and find that midpoint. So again, remember the midpoint formula. Add up the x's, divide by 2. Add up the y's, divide by 2. So labeling our points here, x1, y1, x2, y2. If we add up the x's, that is a negative 2 plus a 4, and we'll divide that by 2. Adding up the y's and dividing by 2 gives us that. Simplifying that, negative 2 plus 4 is a 2, and 2 divided by 2 is a 1. Over here, negative 3 plus 7 is a 4, and 4 divided by 2 is a 2. That gives us the point 1, 2 as the center of our circle. So we're almost there. We have our center, we have HK, we just need to find the radius now. So we need to find the radius, and the radius is the distance from the center of the circle out to any end point of your circle. So we can do one of two things. We can either find the distance between the center and this point, or we can find the distance between the center and this point. Either one of those should give us the same exact answer. for our radius here. So I'm just going to pick these 2 points right over here. I'm going to pick the center, 1, 2, and then the point 4, 7. So I'm going to use 1, 2 as my new x1, y1. And I'm going to take that point along with 4, 7, and I'm going to do the distance formula for those. So remembering the distance formula here, again, x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, and take the square root of that. So that's going to look like square root, open your parentheses, x2, which is a 4, minus x1, which is a 1, square that, plus y2, which is a 7, minus y2, which is a 2, and square that. Subtract as your first step. 4 minus 1 is a 3. 7 minus 2 is a 5. Then square those. 3 squared is 9. 5 squared is 25. Add those up together to get the square root of a 34. Now, square root of 34 is about a 5.8, but we actually don't need that decimal number. We just need that square root of the 34, and we're going to take that along with our center to go ahead and build our equation here. So this is how that's going to look like here. So we have x minus our h. Again, keep in mind, h, k, our center, so h is a 1, k is a 2. So x minus 1 squared plus y minus k squared is equal to our radius, which is a square root of 34. Again, radius squared, so square root of 34 squared. So I know I'm running out a little bit of space here, so I'm just going to take this formula, simplify it right over here. So we had x minus 1 squared, nothing to be simplified there, plus y minus 2 squared is equal to square root of 34 squared. Again, keep in mind square root and a square cancel, so that is simply just going to be a 34 there, and that is the equation of our circle. Now that we have the equation of our circle, let's go ahead and use that to graph it. So when we're taking a look at this here, keep in mind the center of our circle was a 1, 2, which would be right over there. The radius of our circle was a square root of 34, or about a 5.8. So in this instance, we are just going to have to do our best to about guesstimate where this is going to go. If I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then almost about a 5.8 there, go left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and about a 5.8 there. I'm just going to have to do my best up here to build that. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and about a 5.8 there. And then to the right, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and about a 5.8 there. Connect the dots, and you have what your circle would look like there. Last thing we're going to do here is write the equation of this circle in standard form when we are given the general form of a circle. So a lot of times when it comes to equations in math, we're given one form of an equation that doesn't do a whole bunch for us, doesn't give us a whole bunch of information. But if we switch it into a different form, then we know a lot more about it. And that's kind of what applies here. Sometimes we're given the general form of a circle, which looks like this, doesn't tell us a whole bunch. As long as we have the standard form of the circle, we know HK here is our center. We know what this is equal to. If we take the square root of this is our radius. All right? But if it's in this form, we don't know those bits of information here. So then the way that we go from general form to standard form is by completing the square. So if you remember completing the square, if not, you might want to go back and watch one of the completing the square videos. I have individual videos over it, or you could watch the solving quadratic equations video that also has that in there. First step in completing the square, though, is rearranging. So what we want to do, anything with an x in it, we want to group it together. Anything with a y with it, we're going to group it together. And if you have a number there, a constant, you want to go ahead and just move that to the other side of your equation. So in this instance, we're just going to go ahead and add that to the other side. So what our equation is going to look like, let's group the x's first. We have x squared plus 4x. Leave a space. Drop down your y. So we have our plus y squared minus 6y. Leave a space. And that's going to equal to this 23 here that we moved to the other side. So that's step one, rearranging. Group your x's, leave a space. Group your y's, leave a space. And then you have your constant on the other side. Now what you want to do is you want to add 1/2 b squared to each side of the equation. You're going to do this twice. Think about it this way. We want to complete our trinomial here. We want to create a trinomial with our x's, x squared plus 4x plus some number. Again, the same thing with our y's, y squared minus 6y plus or minus some number here. Now that number that we're going to add in is going to be done by completing this little mini formula here. So 4 is going to be b here. Right? And if we take half of 4, we get a 2. 2 squared is a 4. Add that in. We're going to add a 4 to each side of your equation. Add 4 over here on the left. Add 4 over here on the right. Again, you want to add it to each side of your equation. And this is just the steps of completing the square. Okay, we're going to want to do this again for the y's. If we look at our y's, b is a 6. So in this instance, we want to take half of 6 and then square it. Half of 6 is a 3, and 3 squared is 9. Add 9 to the left, add 9 to the right. Now the whole point of adding 1/2 b squared to each side is it's going to allow us to factor this here. So the next thing that we want to do is factor each one of these trinomials. And when we factor these, they should be perfect trinomial squared. So what I mean by that is when we factor this, we know that x times x is x squared. 2 times 2 gives us a 4, and it also adds to get 4. Everything is positive here, so everything is positive here. This does factor to x plus 2 plus x plus 2, which are the same thing, which means we can group them x plus 2 squared. They should be the same factor every single time. Over here, y times y is y squared. 3 times 3 is 9, and these should be minuses, making this y minus 3 squared is equal to the right-hand side. Add up all these numbers. 23 plus 4 is a 27, and 27 plus 9 is a 36. This is your equation of this circle here in standard form. Now, what's the center and the radius of this circle then? All right, this is the formula. Now, keep in mind, if you know the formula, and it'll pull out the center radius. Again, this is h, this is k. But when you're pulling hk from your formula, you're always pulling the opposite numbers that this has. If this says plus 2, you're pulling minus 2. If this says minus 3, you're pulling a positive 3. Your center would actually be a negative 2, positive 3 is how that works. Your radius, take the square root of the number that this is set equal to. The square root of 36 is a 6, so our radius would be a 6 there.